In a dimension where most everything is some shade of red or a neutral color like white, brown, or black, the blue or cyan warped fungus stands out. It's especially odd when you compare it to the crimson fungus, which blends in very well with the red netherrack and orange lava of the nether. And while crimson fungus is clearly named such because of its color, its blue counterpart isn't called blue fungus, or cyan fungus, or even aqua fungus. It's described as warped. The word warped can have different meanings, including twisted or abnormal. This implies that the warped fungus was changed somehow. So what was it like before it was changed? And what changed it? You may have noticed while exploring the nether that you can sometimes find warped fungi in crimson forests, as well as crimson fungi in warped forests. And if you've farmed nether fungi, you've probably noticed that while warped nylium produces mostly warped fungi, it does sometimes make crimson fungi. Similarly, crimson nylium usually produces crimson fungi, but can produce warped fungi. Furthermore, in the Block of the Week article dedicated to the shroomlight, the author claims that the shroomlights of warped and crimson fungi are exactly the same. While I believe that Minecraft does on occasion use an unreliable narrator, the shroomlights of warped and crimson fungi do stack, so them being the same thing does seem to be the case. This is significant because the same article describes the shroomlight as a fruiting body, the part of the fungus which is involved in reproduction. However, after looking it up, mushrooms are actually a kind of fruiting body. Huge crimson and warped fungi appear to be mushrooms, so I'm not quite sure how a fruiting body could also have a fruiting body. Maybe I just need to accept that because they're from the nether, they are different from normal fungi? Or maybe shroomlights aren't a fruiting body after all. But even if both fungi do not use the exact same fruiting body, the fact that crimson and warped nylium can both produce crimson and warped fungi indicates that warped and crimson fungi are one and the same. Warped fungi are just crimson fungi that have been changed. Naturally, this would mean that crimson and warped nylium are the same as well. So what was it that warped the crimson fungi to make some of them dramatically stick out from most of the nether? The Taking Inventory article about netherite scrap offers a clue. At the end of that article, the author indicates that the mushrooms in the nether are a sign that the area either was, or still is, contaminated or polluted. But what caused the nether to become polluted? In a previous video, I explained why I believe the evidence found in bastion remnants, nether fortresses, and end cities suggests that the ancient builders and piglins worked together to mine netherite from the nether. Unfortunately, there are countless instances in the real world of mining activities polluting the local environment. If netherite mining did pollute the nether, that could explain why there are so many forests of fungi. Isn't it odd that, unlike tree saplings, crimson and warped fungi only turn into their huge fungi counterparts once they've had bone meal applied to them? We know that bone meal can be used to accelerate the growth of plants like trees and crops, so it's not unreasonable to think that applying bone meal to fungi to grow them into huge fungi merely accelerates their normal growth cycle. However, is it possible that, under normal circumstances without intervention, crimson and warped fungi would never grow into huge fungi on their own? This would mean that the crimson and warped forests are artificial. Perhaps, in an attempt to clean up the mess that netherite mining had made, the ancient builders and piglins worked together to apply bone meal to the native crimson nylium and fungi, creating the large crimson forests we see today. But in their attempt to remedy whatever pollution resulted from netherite mining, they discovered another problem, which proved to be far more difficult to resolve. I don't think it's a coincidence that warped fungi have colors similar to the particles in end portals. I've said before that I strongly suspect the ancient builders were in the end, at least briefly, before they came to the overworld and nether. Did they somehow bring a contamination with them when they used the exit portal to come to the overworld and then the nether? But even if that isn't the case, there's also the uneven bedrock at the bottom and top of the nether to consider. While I still believe it is uneven mostly because the builders were collecting bedrock to make more of their bedrock portals, I'm also now wondering if they did use bedrock portals in the nether. While the exit portal does link to the overworld and not to the nether, why couldn't the ancient builders have traveled from the end to the overworld, used a nether portal to enter the nether, and then built bedrock portals for direct transportation between the the End and Nether. Did those bedrock portals then cause some sort of contamination of interdimensional energy to spread through the Nether, infecting everything including crimson fungi? And subjected to the forces of the interdimensional energy, some of the crimson fungi were changed or warped into warped fungi. As the builders and piglins were expanding the crimson forests to combat the mining pollution, they encountered clusters of warped nylium and warped fungi, the results of the interdimensional energy pollution. Surely the ancient builders would have realized what was happening to the fungi in the Nether, and recognized that it was a symptom of contamination from the interdimensional energy. If this contamination was the result of bedrock portals in the Nether, that would explain why we can't find bedrock portals in the Nether today. The builders would be extremely negligent if they didn't shut them down. If nothing else, they probably would have done it to appease their business partners. The piglins certainly would have been shocked to see such a different color in their dimension, and would likely be alarmed that such contamination was taking place. Speaking of piglins, I find it interesting that while you can find crimson nylium in Bastion remnant chests, you cannot find warped nylium. Was saving samples of healthy crimson nylium part of the piglins' strategy to combat the interdimensional energy pollution in the Nether? Even if the builders deactivated or destroyed their bedrock portals in the Nether as soon as they realized what was happening, and both parties did their best to grow as much huge fungi as possible to combat the pollution, it seems unfortunately that it was too little too late. Warped fungi can still be found in the Nether today, and there doesn't seem to be any way to unwarp them. Interestingly, warped fungi also deters Hoglins. Despite the creatures having no problems with eating crimson fungi, I plan to take a closer look at that interaction in a future video. But does it make sense for Mojang to build Minecraft with this sort of storyline in mind? In recent years, Minecraft has added mobs which were specifically chosen because their real-life counterparts are endangered. These include such animals as bees, pandas, dolphins, sea turtles, and axolotls. Unfortunately, these animals are endangered because of the actions of humans, including pollution of one form or another. So yes, it makes sense that, in addition to adding endangered animals to Minecraft to bring awareness to them, Mojang would also bake these kinds of themes into Minecraft's lore. And while I did cite 2 articles from Minecraft's website in this video, most of the clues can be found by just playing the game. Once I have the video about Hoglins and warped fungus ready, I'll add it to this end screen. Until next time, take care.